Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kino London Short Film Festival online sessions. This is the first session of 3. Tonight's session will be focused on short film finance. And then tomorrow we're going to have 2 sessions, making the leap from shorts to features, and also our festival programmers roundtable. So make sure you do sign into those as well. And then all of this is kind of coming to a head with our industry night. So if you're in London in person and you'd like to join us for some more awesome panel discussions and some quality industry networking, then do come along to that. That's going to be Wednesday at the Strong Room in Shoreditch. But for now, I am joined with Christian Parton from Genera Films. So I'm going to invite him on screen and we will be chatting a bit about short film finance. Hello, Christian.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Thanks for having me back. Always good to
Absolutely.
Talk about what we do.
Yeah. Thanks for joining again. If any of our audience remembers from last year, Christian joined us as well. And we also have Thomas Verdi joining us from the Film Fund, who I will add to the screen now as well. Hello, Thomas.
Hey, everyone. Sorry, I did my time zone math correctly, but then added the wrong time to my calendar. So
no worries. No worries. Nobody in the audience even knows the difference. You came in just on time, in the nick of time.
Awesome.
So we can just get the conversation going here. Christian, why don't we start with you? Why don't you tell me about Genera Films in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, okay. Essentially, Genera is an alternative way of funding short films. So we set up here in London in 2017. So we've been going since then. I think we funded about 52, 53 short films since.
Wow.
So we operate very similarly to a sort of film festival, I guess. We have an application process, but instead of going to a wonderful festival or being selected, we offer finance. Alongside cash, we also have lots of partners which offer sort of deals, discounts, kit, lots of film festival discounts, things like that, etc. So it's a very simple, easy application process, hopefully. Slightly different to some of the longer, more drawn out options that we have available. And yeah, that is quite nutshelly, I hope. That's what we do.
And then you've also gotten into distribution lately as well, right? So I know on Wednesday you're going to be joining our distribution channel as well. Just give us just a little tidbit on what Genera does for distribution.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it's a natural kind of growth for us as a company. You know, we spent so long kind of funding films, and then naturally our filmmakers wanted a place to then showcase those films and get in front of more eyes and more industry. So we started that process of being able to showcase those films, but not just for the filmmakers that we fund, but also for the thousands of short films that come across our desk that are brilliant that we're not able to support. We can't fund them all, sadly. So we can then give a space to people to be able to showcase those films, connect with other filmmakers on the platform. So we've got sort of contact me buttons. So when you put your film on the website, you can then contact each other through the site. So it's one of those things where you go to a festival, you watch a short, you think it's brilliant, but maybe the filmmakers aren't there, or maybe you've missed them after and you'd quite like to connect with them. It's just a nice way of being able to do that in your own time. So yeah, we've started that process about 18 months ago now. So we've got loads of amazing films. So if you're a fan of shorts, go and check them out.
Nice. And we'll be chatting more about that on Wednesday as well. But now let's move over to you, Thomas. So you do things a little bit differently. It all boils down to one sentence. So tell us about the Film Fund.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Christian, for telling us about Genera Films. That sounds amazing. I definitely want to link up with you after this and learn more too.
Yeah, sure.
We're also an alternative funding platform for short films. We're based in the US, but we accept entries from all over the world, except where it's prohibited, like Iran. The US has some sanctions, with that, so we can't accept pitches from them, unfortunately, for the time being. But yeah, everything boils down to one sentence. We currently focus on shorts. So instead of very similar to what Kristen was speaking about, the short funding landscape is pretty difficult and competitive, and you either have these long grant applications that if your film isn't really, message based or about some kind of underserved community or something like that, like you have a comedy short film that it's hard to get a grant for that, and the applications are generally, I wrote a grant application one time, I think it was 15-20 pages long, met with the committee, didn't get it. It was so frustrating. And then you have screenwriting competitions, and in the US there are no really government funds available. I mean, unless again you're doing the grant thing and maybe it's a documentary or something like that. But yeah, so I was trying to get funding for my short film myself. I was like, okay, well, what's simple? Well, you have a log line. So I wanted to create a platform that's a lot simpler. To answer your question, you write one sentence pitching your short film concept for a chance to receive up to $10,000 and sometimes some other prizes, depending on whether we have sponsors for that contest period or not. And we look at two things in the sentence. Sorry, I all over the place. I haven't had enough coffee. I missed this meeting by an hour. Two criteria. That's the word I'm looking for. Two criteria we judge these sentences on. Do they have a compelling premise? And then do you have a creative use of funding? So it's a lot to pack into one sentence, but let's just say, stupid little example. I have a film about a man who falls in love with an alien from a UFO that's crashed. That's the compelling premise. And then we'll use some of the funding for special creature effects to make it, more, sellable, more creating that world. So we like sentences that take that funding use, and that's a horrible example, by the way. Don't pitch that sentence, but take that funding and relate it to the premise. That's what we like to see. We're also expanding to feature funding this year, fingers crossed. Got a lot of awesome ideas in the pipeline for that. So yeah, you can check us out at thefilmfund.co.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about your background as a filmmaker as well, and what motivated you to start the Film Fund.
Yeah, so as a filmmaker myself, I have produced a lot through the Film Fund, and then as well as corporate videos through various agencies and production companies outside of Philadelphia and inside of Philadelphia. But I'm relatively early in my own filmmaking career, still doing short films. So the Film Fund's very close to my heart. And as I mentioned earlier, I was looking for funding for a short script I had written. We also started in 2017. So I had written this short film script, pretty much the first script I ever wrote as a student in college. And I was also taking an entrepreneurship course at the same time. I was an entrepreneurship minor. So I had this script I had written. It had gotten into a festival called Holly Shorts. They have a screenwriting competition.
Yep.
I was really excited. I was like, wow, I guess this is pretty good. I should try to make it, get funding for it. And I just realized how difficult it was to fund a short film. You have crowdfunding, you have grants, you have screenwriting competitions, awesome companies like Christian that I'm not familiar with or hadn't been familiar with at the time. So yeah, I was in this program for entrepreneurship, and it was a capstone program course. So there were two capstone courses. The first one, I had an idea for like a medical company. And at the end of the semester, the professor goes, "Oh, Tom, great job, good grade or whatever. But for the next capstone course, why don't you do something you're actually interested in?" And I was like, okay. So I had this film funding problem. I said, well, why don't I try to create something related to film funding? So that's how it came about.
Nice. Yeah. Very similar background with us as well with when we started the Kino Film Festival. So for any of the listeners out there that don't quite fully know our background, is Kino started in 2009. We're infamous for our short film open mic night, where anybody can screen anything as long as it's under 10 minutes. And it's a great non-competitive open platform in a space that's just so heavily curated. And now with, thousands of films, being on the festival circuit at, any given time, the shorts market is quite saturated. So a lot of developing artists or artists who are trying more experimental work end up getting completely programmed out of festivals. So we want to provide a platform to them so they can, get in an audience of 60, 70, 80 people sometimes in a room, start getting feedback. And we've screened everything from first-time filmmakers shooting on an iPhone to, BAFTA nominated filmmakers as well, or even Academy Award winning filmmakers as well. And then the festival started. We're in our 4th year now. And, you know, similarly, but with my own filmmaking background, it was out of that place of frustration, right? So it was, yeah, I'm so tired of wasting all of my money, submitting to festivals and getting nowhere with it. How can we create a festival that alleviates all of the pain points? And one of them was, after you're done with you know, your festival circuit with us, if we can get the grand prize winner some funds to fund their next project, then that's, you know, one of our main USPs. And a little bit later on in this conversation, we're going to bring on James Newman, who won our film fund last year, so we can talk about that process as well. But yeah, at the end of the day with Kino, it's about enabling artists to continue to make the art that they want to make. Christian, let's go back to you now. Tell me a little bit about the origin of Genera and why you started it.
Yeah, you know what, everything you both have said, it's very similar. You know, it's again, that sort of place of frustration of doing lengthy application processes, beg, borrowing, stealing money, doing multiple crowdfunding campaigns, all that sort of stuff. And it just felt like there had to be another option or another way, or, you know, I always have this thing, it feels like there's so many of us and so little options. There's got to be, if we can all get together and create a platform. And like I said, it doesn't work without all the filmmakers that come on board, you know, to apply, and we can get that money and go and fund filmmakers. I think the whole thing started, I think I was sat in the pub, which is where you'll find me quite a bit, and I was moaning about film funding, and I sort of had this. I think I even said, and I probably bored people with this story that have heard this before, but is I sort of looked around and said, if we're all filmmakers and we all just put a tenner, you know, or 20 quid in a pint glass, and everyone gets up and pitches their idea, and then the one we all vote is the deserved winner, we give the money, you know, we give the pint glass to with the money. And sort of, why can't it be that simple? Why can't there's so many of us, you know, and we can all support each other, you know, and it's such a sort of competitive industry, but actually there's a lot of us that are all wanting to help and support. And, you know, not everyone has, you know, thousands of pounds lying around to make films, but we can all chip in with a little bit and try and support each other and try and create platforms of unity, you know. So that's how it started, this kind of idea of, can we all just get together, and then we don't have to kind of tick the boxes of other people. We don't have to play by the rules if we don't like, you know. Genera has always been so fluid from the beginning. Everything we listen to, all our filmmakers, just change as we move, because it's for them, not for an alternative purpose. You know, we're not governed by any rules or regulations in terms of what we have to finance, or what box ticking we have to do, or like you said earlier, Thomas, like the sort of 15 pages of applications, you know, a lot of them are about nothing to do with your film, you know, especially in the UK. There's a lot of funds where it's like 15 pages worth of application and 500 words about your film, and you're being judged on everything else other than the quality of the film, and or the idea. And so it just felt like, why don't we just strip all that back, because we can. We're independent, you know, as all of us are, and but that gives us a lot of freedom, because it means we can change things up, you know. And if next week we want to change something, then we can, and we don't have to go through all the kind of box ticking, you know, jumping through hoops that a lot of organisations have to do, and can't be as nimble and change. So yeah, so Genera is just grown, and it's exactly the same place as you guys. It's come from that kind of, surely there's another way. It's not the only way. And there's plenty of great companies, you know, just like yourself, and that are offering loads of support. And I say the more the merrier. You know, let's get as many people supporting as many people as we can. And yeah, we're one of those options.
Great. Well, I have a bunch of more questions for you guys, but we also have some audience questions as well. So I'm just going to kind of bounce back and forth between them. So our first audience question comes in, and they're asking, is 30 grand for a 30-minute short film too much? Let's each answer those questions. I'll give mine first. So two things I'll say as a curator in the film festival space is what's your ultimate goal to do with a 30-minute short film? A 30-minute short film is very difficult to program in the festival space. If you make a shorter film, you're going to have a much more likely chance of placing at festivals. So I would say, see if there's a way to strip your concept back. Or if you want to show a longer form story, maybe you need to expand it to a feature. I think depending on your concept, 30 grand might be too much. I know amazing films that have been pulled off for amounts of money that you would not believe. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Christian, do you have any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, exactly that. The length, it depends what you're doing with it. I mean, in terms of from Genera specifically, we would always be looking at, because we give up to sorry, I should have said really, we give up to £5,000 cash alongside with our, our partners deals and discounts and all the rest of it that you get from applying. But for us, it would definitely be looking at, have you raised any more finance? I sort of give this analogy before that if you're coming to us with a 30 grand short film and you've raised £50 and you're looking for the £5 from us, it is possible. But what we're looking for is to make sure that that money goes towards making a project. It's kind of a belt and braces that we have to a duty of care really for the money and to make sure that film's going. So, yeah, again, it really depends on the film, the concept, what you're doing with it. But yeah, my advice would be to strip that back as well and make it more programmable.
Yeah, for sure. Thomas, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I totally agree. Is echoing both of you. My first thought, the light bulb that went off in my head was, 30 minutes for a short. That's very long. It's going to be very difficult to program. I've sat on programming committees as well for festivals, and that's just it's hard to program a 30-minute form. I don't think it's impossible as a short, but it's definitely, programmers want to get as many films as possible into a block. We actually have a requirement. I ran into that with the Film Fund, actually. We have people asking similar questions and wanting to produce longer form content, but still call them short. So we actually require all films. If you're chosen as a winner, your film has to come in at a runtime of less than 15 minutes or less, which I even think is still a little long. It depends on the short, obviously, but I think 10 minutes is kind of a good sweet spot in terms of that. So yeah, and then in terms of the budget, just echoing Christian, it's hard to say without actually knowing what the film is. I was just at a film festival in Oklahoma, if anyone knows their U.S. geography. It's called the Tonkawa Film Festival. Shout out to them. It was so cool. But there was this amazing sci-fi film. It was actually an AFI thesis short film. And the budget for that was, I won't say the exact budget, but it was between, I'll just say the exact budget. It was $45,000 for a short. And it was very, that was the production value was amazing. It was an amazingly crafted film, but it was also an AFI thesis film. So if I gave them some funding, it was for the thesis that kind of had this power behind them. Like, hey, I'm an American Film Institute student. I'm raising this for my thesis project, and I'm going on to use this as a portfolio piece and, getting more jobs and things like that. So it really depends on the situation. And that was a sci-fi film, and it had a lot of special effects, and I see where the budget went. So, if you're doing a one-room drama as a short film, 30 grand, that's way too much. If you're doing an epic sci-fi feature that has UFOs and alien implant devices, that might not be enough. So I hate to give this non-answer, but it really depends on your film. But gut feeling, takeaways, I would say 30 minutes, too long for a short, in my opinion, and make something cheaper for a short. Like use what you can and get that budget down to as little as you can, but it's still, big enough to pay people.
For sure. And just for, full transparency with the festival is, we compete, all of our categories, one of our USPs as well, is based on budget versus genre. So if you made a film for £500, you're in somebody who's done the same. You're not competing against somebody that's made it for, 30 grand. At our festival, the longest film that we have ever programmed is 21 minutes. The majority probably come in right around that 10-minute mark. There's, some that are shorter as well. I agree with Thomas, 10 minutes does seem to be about the sweet point. And yeah, there you go. That's the bit. And as far as the budget's concerned, probably my favorite film that's ever been submitted to the festival was made for £500. And the largest budget that was ever submitted to our festival was 100 grand. So there really isn't, a wrong answer here. It just depends. And just to follow up, they say it is for a 12-minute short, general drama, doesn't require any CGI or big sets, etc. What would be a good budget? The story centers around one main character. So drama, no CGI, no big sets. I mean, you could probably pull that off, pretty cheaply. It depends if you already have some cast in mind, maybe getting a casting director involved. And you can still find some, incredible talent on equity minimum as well. If I'm making a short film, I'll be perfectly honest about my budgets. Is I've done everything from no budget shorts, and I think the most I've probably ever spent is about $7 or $8 grand on a short. So I know something can be done, for the fund amounts that we're talking about here. The $5 grand from Christian or the up to 10 grand from Thomas here. I would say, if you want to be competitive in the funding space and you're applying to a grant that's an up to amount, maybe you don't want to max it out. Maybe you want to impress them by saying, look, I can give you all this for half of what is available in the fund. And they might be thinking, hey, cool, that means I can fund 2 projects instead of 1, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to see as many projects made as possible. Does that sound fair to you, Christian, what I said?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think some people naturally think if there's $5 grand or 10 grand or whatever that is, we'll just go for that, and then we'll figure out how that makes sense later. And I think that's really apparent, certainly from our process. That actually when you get we're looking for £4,227 because it's for this, and this. Do you know what I mean? Then it's a thought out thing. It's like, okay, so you've not just gone, I'll ask for 5, and then if we get short, if they come back and ask why, I'll kind of just jot something together and make it work. There is a budget. It's scoped out, and this is what's required because you've raised X amount through crowdfunding, or you've got a bit from here and there, and this is what you need to kind of greenlight the film and go. So that's always impressive, if there's been thought to it, because it's one of those things, like we're giving money to people to go make films, right? So we want to make sure that it doesn't matter your experience in making the film. We funded plenty of first-time filmmakers, so there's nothing to look at to see if they can deliver this film. But you can gauge a lot off if someone has done the homework and thought about where this is going. So I would always say, yeah, if you could, the more specific and kind of this is what we need it for is the best way. Because it's very easy to see, like, yeah, $5 grand. Well, it's going to cost a bit. It's like, okay, whereas if we can see where that's going, it's like, okay, these guys know what they're doing. We know what we're giving the money for. So yeah,
sure,
specific.
Sure. Thomas, thoughts on that question as well?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are kind of taking the words out of my mouth. It's very important to know what your funding is going toward. I mean, we get pitch sentences all the time that are so vague, and that's why we ask for we call it creative use of funding. Really just means like pragmatic use of funding. And I say creative because we can learn more about the world of the film if they list what some of the funding is going to be used for. Now, yeah, you only have 1 sentence to do so, but if they say they're going to use the funding for period accurate costuming and a costume designer and a wardrobe that's authentic, and they're using it from the local historical society or whatever, that gives us kind of a glimpse into what that film's going to look like. If we get, and I've gotten these sentences before, it'll say, we need $10,000 to make this film and it's going to change the world. Like that's not going to, haven't even given out the $10,000 yet. It all depends on the entry fees. So we get, to 7, 8, for projects, but that doesn't tell me anything. And it also tells me that they're just kind of, oh, $10,000. Yeah, I need that. Well, why do you need that? Where's that money going to? You can't tell us everything the fund is going to be used for, funding is going to be used for in the sentence. But if you can give us 1 or 2 things, like post-production or, like I said, wardrobe, that's really going to show us, okay, this person, like Christian said, has actually put thought into what their budget is going towards. So that's super important, and that's why we require that use of funding portion of the entry sentence.
Okay, so I want to do a follow-up question, and this is one of my main questions for the Film Fund, is how do you gauge, the project with such a short answers, right? With
Mhm.
with one sentence about where the funding goes and one sentence on the idea. Yeah, how do you end up with a project that you know can be delivered if you're not looking at things like you know, previous reels and stuff like that?
Yeah, you know, and that is part of I don't want to say risk that we take, because we're not taking ownership in these films. It's really about giving the community and that winner an opportunity. But there is a lot that we can tell from just one sentence, and certain words they use within that sentence, they can create conflict within the premise portion of the sentence. And like I said, they can list specific things the funds are going to be used for. But let's look at the compelling premise. You know, there is conflict in that premise. And I apologize if there's an echo. I didn't have my headphones in the last minute.
No, you're all right. I'm just muting you when everybody else talks,
Okay,
but you're fine.
But yeah, no, we look at conflict as the main thing. What is the conflict of this story? And then all the judges gather together. I mean, it's remotely, but we look at all the sentences and we vote on our top picks for each category, narrative or documentary. And if we're stuck on a sentence, and it is, you know, it's we can't fund everybody, like Christian said with his company. It's tough. We have to make tough decisions. But the two things that it comes down to are conflict and then stakes. So okay, here are two films that we've kind of narrowed as the two contenders for the prize. Which one has higher stakes? Well, someone's life is at stake in this one, as opposed to, oh, this girl's going to drop her ice cream cone. Again, stupid examples, but we look at conflict and then stakes of that conflict to help us narrow it down.
Cool. Christian, can you tell me a little bit more about your process and you know, how Genera decides which films to fund and which films not to fund?
Yeah, sure. So it's not quite as short as one sentence, but it's a fairly short application process, you know, comparatively to others. But yeah, we're looking for a great idea. We're looking for a good team. We're looking for the budget to make sense. The process is, the first stage is just an online form. So you'll have all the information you need. There's no trick questions really. You'll be able to fill that out in probably 5-10 minutes, not even that.
And if I can just interrupt you as well, I'm somebody who's submitted to your fund, and the other thing I really like about it is you can submit it and then update it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Yes. So at the moment our rounds are every 6 months. So we've got like a July and then a January sort of deadline. But similarly to the festival, we have a sort of an early bird, a regular, a late deadline. So as you alluded to, yeah, you can come in at the early bird submission and change that at any point within the round up until the close. So we don't start looking or judging any of the projects at any point within the round. It's only when it finishes. So yeah, it's an online form, nice and simple. And then from that process, when the round closes, we turn it around quick. So we've got it's a 10-day before everyone is then notified. And at that point, the projects are all looked through. So we send all of our projects, and then sorry, let me get back to it. So after 10 days, then we shortlist, and then from that point, we ask things like budgets, breakdowns, script breakdowns, or any extra material you might have. A little video sometimes is quite nice. You can kind of get across your film to us, and then we go from there to sort of fund the film. So 17 days from the close of the round to literally being getting the money, essentially. So it's a nice sort of quick turnaround. You're not waiting for months and months and months, or then going through lots of workshops. But yeah, all our scripts are sent out. We've got about 20-25 different readers at any one time that will read for us from all over the world, all different stages in their careers, and also sort of different, some that have come more the commercial route into film, and others that are purely narrative, and very, very sort of a different mix of people, really. We keep them all behind closed doors because filmmakers find them and find them on LinkedIn and anywhere they can, and sort of bug them to see if they're reading their script or not. So, which means they tend to go and we don't get them back next year. So we kind of keep that all sort of in-house. And then from there, we then fund. So it's a really simple, I guess, process in terms of very transparent, for the filmmakers. So yeah, it's worked so far.
Cool. And then one of the things as well is it's not just for projects in pre-production. You will also come on board for completion funds as well, correct?
Yeah, so we found that not, especially sort of if you're making your first short or your second short, you kind of spend the money and get to the end and think, oh, color grade, sound design, festival run, the cost of, oh, right, I didn't realize it was quite, so expensive. I want to go out to so many film festivals. So yeah, we'll jump on board at any stage. So we're not just looking for things that are looking to be made. We're looking for films that are finished or almost complete, that are looking for that push that we feel that if we gave you a bit of money, it would get out to the world and do well. So yeah, at any stage. And what we're finding, because as you said, you can edit the application at any point. Sometimes things move a little bit quicker than you thought, right? So you might have applied when you're in pre-production, but actually you managed to get some money and you've gone and shot the thing. Well, the application for us hasn't gone off. You can come back and sort of update the project as actually we've shot it now, we're in the edit, so we're looking for money for this. So which is nice. So you've got a bit more flexibility as a filmmaker, of where you might need that money and that support.
Cool. And then Thomas, is the Film Fund also for completion funds or purely for things from the ground up?
Yeah, we do both. We're going to be looking at that use of funding. We have thought about doing a separate contest for just post-completion funds, but right now anyone can enter if they're in pre, or if they want, funds for post. But that's a funding use that we like to see that a lot. If you have a really strong premise and then the funding use portion of the sentence says, oh, film is shot, we're going to be using the funds for post or an audio mix or something like that. There was one pitch we really liked. It had to do with a documentary about a band, and the funding use was to go to post-production to make sure the sound mix was really good, because it's music focused, so you're going to want that to be accurate. So yeah, we do post funding as well. Yep.
Cool. All right, I'm going to go back to another audience question now. So for this one, it's about crowdfunding. Now, obviously, neither Genera nor Film Fund does crowdfunding. I haven't, I don't run a crowdfunding company, but I've done crowdfunding myself as a filmmaker, so I can speak to it a little bit, and maybe you guys can as well if you have any of those experiences. But it says we are also looking for a crowdfunding on online platforms. How much should be realistically expecting to be able to raise via crowdfunding, and then how much should we get ourselves? 50-50 split ? And it says, let's say aiming for a total budget of $7,000. Again, this is going to kind of really depend on your own network and what you think is realistic. I've been associated with, I think, 3 different crowdfunding campaigns, and I know that if you are dipping into the same network of people, you're less likely to continue to get funds again from those same people. So your first shot out of the gate is where you can typically raise the most. There's some companies like Greenlit, for example, that does crowdfunding, and they can give you some private strategy as well, because they're not as corporate as some of the bigger ones like Indiegogo or Kickstarter. So that's nice. But yeah, I would say, as far as a percentage is concerned, I mean, start with crowdfunding, because that shows a financier or an investment fund that there's already interest in your project. Get as much as you can out of that. And then after that period, you can start to, apply to the funds, or, be doing them in tandem a little bit as well is fine. A crowdfunding campaign is a lot of work, I'll tell you that. It's a lot of networking online. It's a lot of research into targeting who you think might be interested in your project. One of our partners for Industry Night is CineCircle, and CineCircle is run by somebody who's an absolute genius at crowdfunding. So that might be another resource that you can check them out, or come to our Industry Night on Wednesday and chat to them in person if you're in London. Christian, any crowdfunding tips?
Yeah, it's like you said, it is. Number one, know what you're getting into. It's not just a case of I'll chuck it on my socials and I'm sure everyone will give me all the money. It'll be fine. It is a slog. It's one of the reasons why Genera is there. At least it's a bit more targeted. It helps support that kind of thing. Shout out to Greenlit. Definitely, those guys, at least they can kind of give you a little bit more guidance. I think if you're coming into it for the first time, I mean, I've done it myself. You do need a little bit of guidance. So I would be talking to people that have already done it before, sort of the do's and don'ts. As I said, it's not, sadly, it's not quite as simple as I'm sure I know enough people. I'm sure everyone will give me money. But yeah, so and how much you should be looking for and how much you should do yourself. Again, it really depends. It's like you said earlier. You could make a great film for 500 quid. That is subject to you knowing lots of people that want to help you out and people that are going to give you kit and locations and all the rest of it. So sometimes people don't have access to those sorts of people. So it really depends where you are with the film and what you can beg, borrow, and steal, and then what you physically need to make, the short. So yeah, that doesn't really help. But talk to as many people, I would say, and just gain as much advice and info on what to do and what not to do. But have your eyes wide open. That's the best advice. You know, it's not going to be a case of just throwing it out there and I'm sure it'll be fine. You're going to have to think about a strategy for it and what you're posting and the content you're posting, to engage people to want to care as much as you do.
Yeah, it's a full-on marketing campaign. Thomas, any experience with crowdfunding?
Not firsthand experience. We'll be transparent about that. I thought about doing crowdfunding for that first film, Son of Blackbeard, that I mentioned, kind of the impetus for starting the film fund, and then I realized this is a lot of work, and I want to, like you said, I want to save that for maybe a more important project down the line in my career. Because like you said, if you keep dipping into the same pool of people, hey, I want your money to make a film, you do that 2 or 3 times, you're not going to get any more money potentially. So one good thing I can offer is a recommendation. This book called Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers, I believe it's called, by Richard Bodo, the founder of Stage 32. I read that just in some of my research and market research when I was starting the film fund and looking at expanding it. That is a super great book if you're looking at starting a crowdfunding campaign. Again, I haven't used any of those tips yet to start my actual crowdfunding campaign, but one tip I thought was really, really good, one strategy, was identify almost everyone you can that you want to target with this crowdfunding campaign, and reach out to them before you actually launch the campaign. Say, hey, I'd love if you could contribute. We're going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign. If I could have your support, that would be awesome. And if you get them on board, actually give them a specific day and time to contribute to the campaign online, because the way I think this was Kickstarter in particular, the way Kickstarter works is it looks at traction of the campaign and how many people are funding it and how quickly. So if you stagger it out, you can actually have better success. So another cool platform I haven't used again, but KitSplit, one of our equipment partners, Seed and Spark, which is crowdfunding specific for film. So they have a lot of great resources on their website, how to model your campaign page, how to make a great pitch video or crowdfunding pitch video, all that kind of stuff. So I check out that. So yeah, my two, and just fun fact, you can use a crowdfunding campaign or crowdfunding in conjunction with entering the film fund. So we do see that sometimes. Our first ever winner, what's his name, Tim Viola, he had a project called Americano. They had raised the majority of their funds through Kickstarter, and then we came on board to help out with posts. So you can definitely combine funding resources, and I would encourage you to do that as much as you can in the industry too.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to start wrapping things up here a little bit, because we do have James Newman in the waiting room. We have one more time for one more question, and then I'll give you guys time for final thoughts, anything we might have missed that you guys want to plug. So the last question we have here is it good to upsell directors' previous work, for example, a short film, if they've won some awards, and even like a YouTube short series, perhaps that doesn't have as big of a production value, but still shows what they can do, to use that to promote the new project? Yeah, absolutely. It totally makes sense to always dip into your work. If you're worried about your production value not being high enough, there's some merit to that, but recently I've been doing quite a bit of research into breakthrough filmmakers and trying to retrace their origins, and I'm shocked at how many of them's first project was just abominably terrible. And one thing that's just sometimes even frustrating about the festival space and is some of these curators, it's lovely. They really, really do love and champion the underdog, but sometimes it is at the expense of more crafted work of, you know, people who have put in the work for decades. And then sometimes a newbie will come in who just gets lucky sometimes. So it's always worth showing your previous work, I think. Any other thoughts on that, Christian?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, I've watched plenty of films, as I'm sure we all have, which are incredibly high production value and are not great films, you know. So sometimes we you know, you do what you can, especially with your first film. You might not have access to all the toys, the best camera equipment, the best anything, but if the story's good, I think as an audience we forgive that, because we're like, okay, it's a little bit, but actually it's really compelling. It's a great story, you know. I would rather that personally than watch something that looks like incredible, but at the end you're like, well, that was kind of in fact, it's the opposite. I kind of go, God, what a waste of money that was. We could have made 5 brilliant short films for that, you know. So obviously, do what you can, go for the best you can, but ultimately, if you've got a great script and a great story, that will shine through, you know. And if other things are slightly lacking, then as you said, and also look, whose first film or second film, you know, I've said this before, if you're truly ever happy with your film, then you're done.
I agree.
As a creative, if you make a project and you say, I wouldn't change anything, that's brilliant. Well, then that's it. You're done. You know, you have to, you know. So, look, it's about evolving and growing. You know, sometimes making something is the most important thing, not holding out for the perfect. The perfect will never come. You know, so just go and do it, and don't worry too much about that.
Yeah, I talk about that quite a bit when I'm teaching and stuff like that. The phrase is analysis paralysis. It's when you everything has to be so perfect, and you analyze it to the point that you don't actually get started. Yeah. Getting started is always more important than perfection. Thomas, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm sure you've heard this before, and if you haven't, you're going to hear it a million times in your career, at least early in your career when you're asking advice about production value. If anything, invest in good sound, because if your film, if it's shaky and you didn't hire a cinematographer, or the cinematographer was just also maybe starting out, if it sounds good, there's something psychological that goes on in an audience's mind and their experience of it where, oh, okay, this sounds like a movie. This actually sounds good. And they won't actually think about it as much. Whereas if you have your film could look great. You could have the most beautiful visuals, but if it doesn't sound right, if the levels aren't mixed right, or if there's not the right, you know, ambient tracks or room tone or what have you, that's the distraction, and it just screams amateur. And this looks, okay, this is a home video, or this is a YouTube video, not a film. So the first thing, always have good sound. Even if you don't have money to hire like a sound recordist, at least buy a good mic. And my first short film, admittedly, is terrible, and you will not find it online anywhere. I won't even give it to my friend who's starting, and he's begging me. I'm like, no, no one can see this. But it had good sound, and it was literally my dad holding a boom pole that we rigged up from Home Depot. He's like a painter's pole, but it was a good mic. I got it on eBay, and it sounded good. So, and in terms of your question about showcasing previous work from your director, I would definitely say that if you have the opportunity to. With the Film Fund, not so much as it is now with the short film funding contests, we do focus more on the content and how you're going to use the funding to make that content. But as we expand into feature funding, we are going to be asking for, you know, what director do you have attached and what is their previous work. So I would definitely always champion your crew and the team you have aboard. And then also, I'll wrap this up quickly, I know we got to go soon, but in terms of the production quality not being there, again, it depends on the genre. I mean, if it's comedy, you know, I'm going to forgive that. If it's a doc, I'm going to forgive that. If it's maybe supposed to be a period piece and be historically accurate and it just doesn't look right, then I'm not going to forgive that. So, I mean, a great example is, I think I've actually ever seen the footage, or actually maybe I have, but It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If anyone's familiar with that series, partial to that. I'm currently in Philadelphia. That's where I grew up and live. But that was terrible. I think they shot it on like a camcorder in, you know, Rob McElhenney's basement or whatever, and it was just bad. But now look at it; it's one of the longest running TV series of all time. So comedy, forgivable, focus on the content, and yeah, definitely champion your crew for sure and your team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and can I just jump in? I think sorry. And I was just quickly going to jump in on kind of making, if it's your first film, or don't be afraid to ask. I think so many people in life, it's really funny, like the amount of things that I'm a sort of bit of a blagger anyway, and I will always ask, and I'm so happy to fail. Like I'm so happy to fail. You're a far more interesting person if you've tried and failed, and I think that it sounds really weird. People don't want to hear that. The fear of it not going right is debilitating, but just go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But the amount of times people go, how did you do that? I go, I just asked. I just said, hey, can I do this? Can I have this? I don't have any money. Can I have this location? I don't have money for kit, but can I borrow? Okay, yeah, well, there is one free this weekend. Great, I'll take it this weekend. Like the kind of fear of doing all that, especially sort of in the UK, there's this, like, we're very British. We don't want to upset anyone, and we sort of do the right thing. But sometimes it's incredible. Just ask, and people are like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. Yeah, or we've got a camera free next weekend if you can make that work. Yes, I can. It's like it's amazing, and suddenly your budget cash-wise can shrink down because you've just asked. Hey, can I use your front room? We've got no money, but I'll credit you in the film. Yeah, sure, great. Because you're about to go and pay 500 quid to use something you found online. Like just really use what you've got around you and ask. Just ask. Because the worst they're going to say is no, and you're in exactly the same position as you are now. And it's free. It's free to ask. So just go for it.
Yeah. And then kind of your closing statements a bit for this. I would say artists are typically not the best gauge of their own work. One of two things: they tend to be either hypercritical, so they think the project is way worse than it actually is. And I've seen plenty of filmmakers who have a completely watchable film that they don't think is good enough, so they don't take it anywhere, and it just lives on their hard drive. And I think that's a terrible thing. And on the flip side of that, there's people who are convinced of their own genius when they don't have something. But in our weekly email newsletter, we do this section called do you need a kick in the lens? And basically it's just to motivate you with great stories about breakthrough filmmakers and their origins, which is what I alluded to earlier. In our last edition, we focused on the Safdie brothers, who you know from Uncut Gems and Good Time. And I was surprised to find out that their debut feature premiered at the Directors Fortnight at the Cannes Film Festival. And while it was programmed at such a prestigious festival, based on that particular programmer's taste, it universally got 1 star out of 4-star reviews across the board. And I have it here. Some of the review quotes were: a preeminent example of what happens when filmmaking tools become accessible to people with nothing to say. Brutal review. And this one in particular: muffled dialogue and fuzzy imagery are borderline appalling, even by the old school DIY standards to which this picture pretentiously aspires. So, these are people who, were not afraid to show unpolished work, got recognized because there was a spark of something within them that people thought were interesting. It jump-started their career, and now they're working with the likes of Adam Sandler in an absolute career-defining role. So never be afraid to show your own work. Christian, Thomas, thanks so much for joining me. Why don't we just have final statements? What's any other thing you'd like to plug, where we can follow you? Christian?
Well, if you've ever made a short film or planning to make a short film, check us out, generafilms.com, Genera Films on all the socials, and don't be afraid to fail.
And Thomas.
Likewise, if you have any interest in making a short film or a feature film, we're going to be launching our feature film program this year. Don't hold me to a month because I've been saying that for a while now, but it will be this year. But learn more at thefilmfund.co. That is .co, not .com. And if you have any questions whatsoever, you can email me personally at tom@thefilmfund.co. I will email you back. It might take me a day or two because we get a lot of emails, but I still handle all of our email myself. So if you have any questions whatsoever, hit me up. You can also check us out on social media, on Instagram on Instagram at The Film Fund, Twitter at Simply Film Fund, LinkedIn, The Film Fund, although I hate LinkedIn, but we're there as well. And then Facebook is facebook.com/filmfundco. All of your questions, should be answered on the website. We have a pretty comprehensive FAQ, but if not, like I said, send me an email. And yeah, and then if you want to learn more about my own personal filmmaking career, you can go to my website, thomasverdi.com. Check out my latest short film, The Toms, which is screening at festivals just in the US so far, but hopefully we'll expand that soon.
Nice. Well, I'm going to put you guys back into the green room now. You can feel free to hang out there and watch the rest of the thing, and then we can kind of chat privately afterwards, or if you need to run. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Next, we are going to go into showing you the trailer for our Kino original. This is Do Not Touch. And then after the trailer, I will bring James Newman on screen. Okay. Ooh, a little bit of a lag there. Sorry, guys. Boom. Hello, Mr. Newman.
Hello, Dustin. You're right.
Yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. That was good.
Yeah, thanks for
watching.
Oh, good. Thanks
sorry. Go on.
You're good. Thanks for joining us. Just wanted to add you to the conversation so we could chat a little bit about the Kino Film Fund, since you have firsthand experience using it and using it very quickly. So for any of our listeners that don't know, James won our festival, the grand prize of our festival last year with his pitch for Do Not Touch. Got the film into production extremely quickly. I think you won the fund in April and then were in production in June, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's great. Any tips for filmmakers looking to pitch, in general, but specifically to our fund as well, since you seem to have the magic potion to unlock ours at least?
Well, I guess the thing is to try it out on your friends. And I was finding that when I was pitching it more to my friends, that the pitch was refining to see what people were reacting to. Another thing is I guess just trying to find something that you find interesting and is that you have to make. Otherwise, it's something that I felt like I sort of had to make that, and it was sort of what made me propel and have the urge to do it. Because yeah, it was something where I don't know. Yeah, do you have that when you sort of like, oh, I have to make this?
That's all I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really make any films that I feel nothing but 100% pure passion for. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So tell us about, just your experience winning the fund and, how that worked for you to enable pre-production and production. How much of a jerk I am to work with as an executive producer.
I'll tell them about that. Yeah. Well, the reason it was so quick was because we were already in pre-production before we won the award. So the award would have made it obviously 100 times better, but we would have had not near as enough money to actually do it as we liked. So it was it had a massive impact on the film because it wouldn't have been as good or acceptable. I think. So yeah, we were rolling up to that and filmed in June for 2 days, and then we're in post-production for about a month, and that's I thought was quite quick.
Yeah, quite quick.
And yeah, it was very, very quick, and it felt smooth. I feel like we managed to figure out all the kinks in this our first film, which was the main problems that I found was post. Really, it's just the death of me waiting for post. Just finding really good people you can work with and paying people really makes a difference.
Yeah, having some money to work with and not pulling free favors 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and because everyone's doing it at the weekends and they're helping out, and it's very nice that they're helping out, and always grateful. But there is sometimes you're like, oh my god, this is taking ages. So yeah, it just takes that bit of money to go across the line.
Yeah,
I think you were obviously awesome as a executive.
obviously. No.
Obviously awesome. It was yeah, you came in with great suggestions. We had a chat. You thought the location was too much, but that was fine. We had our own money. And yeah, it was so easy go. It was probably the most ideal situation we could have really hoped for. Because you were on board, you liked it. Everyone had a good time. So the film was made for £3,000, and it was literally down to the last pound. And that's including the budget, the sort of the Kino Fund. So we had 2K of our own money in that as well, which we self-funded. So I think
is that production? Is that just production and post-production, or does that include your marketing and festival budget as well?
Yeah, it doesn't include marketing festivals. So I think we spent probably about 500 quid on festivals, marketing. So yeah, it's I think we've used the money well is the main thing. I think we haven't really wasted any money, whereas the first film we did waste a lot of money. So it's good to learn, and it's good to, I think we've got it down, but then probably don't have it down because everything goes wrong.
You learn more each time and everything. And I know you alluded to some of the great people that you worked with. You worked with, some of the same actors multiple times, which must mean that you're a good director to work with from an actor's perspective. And you also got some more established name talent involved in this production with Sean Walsh. Can you tell us a little bit about the casting process and how that came about?
Well, it's not a normal casting process. I'll say that. So I met Sean at a film festival, and he really liked our first film, and we were talking afterwards, and he told me to send in the script that I was working on, and then he agreed to be in it. So I knew Sophia, and then casting call. We did a casting call out for the rest of the roles, apart from Charlotte, who is Sean's friend. So we were very, 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 very lucky. I really wouldn't have thought it would have happened. We would never have got Sean, really, if that hadn't happened. So it was just really being in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
And he was awesome. Everyone was awesome. Everyone had fun, which is the good thing. Everyone, I think, because it's a comedy and everyone's sort of having fun and filling up condoms with hand sanitizer. It's
an adult comedy.
Yeah, everyone had fun.
That's good. Tell me a little bit about the journey of your film after the production. Some of the festival success that you've had. I know we're now online streaming with director's notes. What else can you plug? We're nominated at the Unrestricted View coming up. We were nominated at Crystal Palace.
Yes, that's 2 nominations. So we're up for 2 awards at Unrestricted View. We're playing in Carmarthen Bay in May,
which is a BAFTA qualifier.
A BAFTA qualifier.
Yeah.
And we've got LA this week, I think. And yeah, it's going really well. I didn't think it would go as well, but the festivals have been great. I really have nothing to complain about. I'm very, very surprised it's got into this many. Seeing as it's got condoms, full condoms. You think that some people would balk and think it's lewd. Especially highbrow film festival audiences.
BAFTA qualifying.
BAFTA qualifying condoms. So yeah, it's gone really well. I'm very, very pleased. and I have no complaints. I'm just very, very grateful that people are still watching it. It goes down really well in audience as well, which is good. It's really good to see at Crystal Palace. Which you were.
I
Did
was
you
there.
miss this? Did you miss the screening?
No, I don't think I missed.
No, it was a good room.
Some of the screenings, but yeah,
it was a good vibe. And it's super happy with it. And it wouldn't have been anything without the Kino Fund.
And we're also screening it again. So at our awards gala, we'll be announcing this year's grand prize winner as well. And before we do them, before we announce this year's winner, we're going to torture them by showing them your film, so they can see.
Okay.
So they can see what they have to live up to.
Yeah, what not to do.
Well, thanks for joining us. Any other tips that you would have for filmmakers that are applying for funding, and any cheat sheet?
Cheat sheet. Yes, there's a lookup film pitch logline. Look up logline formulas. Actually, I find they really work. Other people may disagree. There's one called Killigator. Very, very useful. Very simple.
Cool. Sounds like a way to reverse engineer Thomas's The Film Fund. Just as long as you don't get it, just as long as we don't get AI to start writing log lines, then we're done for.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, James. I will take off the screen. If you want to wait in the waiting room, that's cool too. And just final, yeah, absolutely. And then just signing off here on behalf of Kino. This year's festival is going to be, bigger and badder than ever. We already started last night with our infamous short film open mic night. Tonight we're all online. Tomorrow's going to be all online as well with 2 panels. Next up at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow GMT here in London. It's going to be our panel on how to make the leap from shorts to features. And that's going to feature some amazing filmmakers, including Laura Moss, who just premiered Birth and Rebirth at Sundance. Also Claire Cooney, who's a programmer at Omeletto and just did her debut feature, Departing Seniors. And also Becky Hutner from Fashion Reimagined, which is now available to watch on Now TV. So if you want to figure out how to make the leap from shorts to features, come along to that. And I would love to see you all at the industry night in person on Wednesday here in London. So find all that information on our website, stream all the amazing films that we have, all of our official selections on Clipist, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in.